Since I'm 28 years old, I've been an animal lover ever since I was a child, which led to me pursuing a career path that had to do with animals. I'm a veterinary assistant. But for a while, I also had a little side gig in which I'd offered a house set, animals for people going away on vacation, and such. This ranged from cats to dogs, bugs to birds. I had actually had entire weekends a few times for people who presumably didn't have any family available to watch them being a young female who also already works at a veterinary hospital. Most people weren't intimidated by the idea of me staying in their house while they're gone. I wasn't just some random person off the street. My credentials were all over the internet. I got a response to my ad one day from a man named Jerry seeking my services. He had a 20-something-year-old Mkiao and a cat that he needed to have watched for a weekend while he went away. He brought up a price right away and offered me $300 for the entire weekend. I accepted that offer because that was a fair deal. I have experience dealing with birds of all types, including maca, but this would be my first time I'd ever watched one for an entire weekend. I met Jeremy at his house. It was a basic, normal corner house for the neighborhood. He was a short man in his late 50s. If I had to guess, he had graying hair and a graying mustache. He seemed very friendly in my experience. Most animal lovers are after meeting Jeremy. I met his bird Ringo and his cat Casper. Ringo was huge. I've handled Maca in the past, which I assumed was part of the reason Jeremy hired me. He told me about Ringo's personality and quirks, and how to get him to quiet down if he makes noises. Ringo kept saying Daddy's home as Jeremy would handle him. He laughed and said, "That's what he says when he sees him." Ringo said a few other phrases along with that, all of them 2 or 3-word phrases, after showing me how to clean the cage and everything like that. He showed me the rest of the house and told me how often to feed Casper. He asked that I don't go into any other bedrooms upstairs, besides the guest bedroom where I'd be sleeping, which was understandable. There was a bathroom upstairs right next to the bedroom, and he told me I could help myself to his food. However, I'm a vegan, so I brought my own food for the weekend after all of this, and him getting to know me a bit. He gave me the key to the house and left. I watched through the window as he drove off, and I was left alone with Ringo and Casper. It was already late in the day at this point, like 8 p.m. It was dark out, so there wasn't much left to do that night. Casper was already fed, and Jeremy already left enough food in Ringo's cage for the night. The cage was in the living room in the center of the house right next to the TV, so I turned on the TV and plopped down on the couch. Casper was hiding somewhere in the house out of sight. Ringo was just sitting in the cage watching me after a couple of hours of watching TV and eating my little dinner. I went to bed. No reason to stay up super late. I slept with the bedroom door open, and I woke up in the middle of the night to a sound. The best way I could describe it was 2 loud cracking sounds. I sat up and listened for a second, nothing, so I laid back down and went back to sleep. There was a giant bird in a cage downstairs. Hearing sounds was not unexpected. The next day was pretty easy. I cleaned up cast litter box, fed him, and fed Ringo. I let Ringo out to play for a couple of hours. He perched on the back of the couch behind me as I watched TV. Jeremy told me that Casper and Ringo typically ignore each other, so I wouldn't have to worry about one attacking the other. Fast forward a few hours, and I left the house to go explore the area a little bit. I went for a walk in the park. and FaceTimed a couple of my friends. I did a little driving around too and picked up some food for dinner that night before returning to the house. It was around 7 p.m. When I returned, I interacted with the pets for a couple of hours as I ate my dinner and watched TV. Jeremy was supposed to be returning home late tomorrow. I called it a night early again. I went to sleep with the door open again. However, once again, I woke up to a sound. This time, I believe it was the sound of the bedroom door closing. I looked up and saw that the bedroom door was now closed while the windows were open. There was little to know when to create a draft. This was weird. I also could hear sounds from downstairs. It sounded like Ringo moving about in his cage, talking. I got out of my bed to check on him and make sure he's okay. As I was walking down the stairs, I heard him talking more clearly. I got to the cage and saw he was wide awake and walking around. I remember what Jeremy told me to do. To get him to quiet down, hand him a particular treat. I dug into the bag to grab one, but then he said the phrase, "Daddy's home." I found that odd and slightly unsettling. I put a treat in front of Ringo's face and he grabbed it. This ultimately did end up getting him to stop making noise, but it still felt weird that he'd wake up in the middle of the night. I went back to the bedroom and left the door open. I fell back asleep and I woke up once again, maybe a little more than an hour later this time. I didn't hear what woke me up, but I looked up in the room in a dazed, and in the near pitch black darkness of the room, I saw a black mass in the center of the room, moving away from the bed and out the door. I sat up and almost screamed until I fully came to I now had to wonder if what I just saw was a hallucination or not. I grabbed my phone to turn on the flashlight, but on the screen I saw I had gotten a text from Jeremy around an hour ago. It was him telling me that if Ringo makes noises in the middle of the night, it's normal, and to ignore it. I stared at my screen rereading the text at least 10 times. That text was sent conveniently around the same time I got up to give Ringo a treat. I felt ill all of a sudden. That black mass in the room I just saw. What if that were real? What if it wasn't a hallucination? I got out of bed and turned on the lamp. I started packing my bag as quickly as possible. I didn't bring many clothes, so I was packed very quickly. I quietly went to the bathroom next to grab all my toiletry quick, and then I tiptoed back out of the bathroom, and I was in the near pitch black upstairs hallway with all the bedroom doors. I looked down the hallway, and I could swear I heard the faintest sound coming from one of the bedrooms. I don't know why, but this overwhelming curiosity almost hypnotized me, and I crept down the hall to what I presumed to have been the master bedroom. I put my ear up close to the door, and I heard a rattling sound sounded like a bed rocking. He was in there, that creep. I knocked on the door and said, "Jeremy, are you in there?" The rocking sound stopped Saint, and there was now dead silence. I repeated myself, and this time said, "If you're in the house, I need to know right now, before I leave." Still silence, I left the house in a hurry, leaving the key on the table, and I didn't look back on my drive home. I sent him a long voice text saying, "I'm considering reporting this to the authorities as some sort of stalker or breach of privacy situation, and that I was extremely disturbed that he was in the house." He immediately tried calling me 3 times, but I was honestly too scared to pick up. He then sent me a text apologizing and stating that his brother unexpectedly came home that night. I knew it was complete horseshit. I demanded he just pay me, and I won't pursue this any further. He sent me a payment via Zelle, and that was that. I hate to even mention this part, but the next day I realized I was missing a certain article of clothing from my bag that I know for a fact was grabbed out of my bag by him. I have largely chosen to block this memory out. This will be the first and last time I ever write a detailed recounting of this experience.